What's up, YouTube? Wesley here with Mountains, Mushrooms, and Mary Jane, and this episode is going to be all about DIY agar for your mushroom cultivation, and I hope you enjoy. Here we go. Alright, so here we go. In case you didn't catch my last video, I had a video on some supplies that you should gather in order to do DIY agar and liquid cultures. But we're going to go over some supplies that you'll need anyways. If you've watched that video, you should be fine. There is a couple other things that I didn't mention in that video that we'll get right to here in just a second. But to start, you're going to want some condiment cups. You can find those at just about any grocery store. And then this was some instant coffee at one point in time, and I just reused the jar for that. It's about a 750 milliliter jar. Some people will reuse alcohol bottles or other things, or you can buy jars specifically for media pouring as well. And then instead of going a yeast-based agar, we're going to go a starch-based. So we have our Hungry Jack mashed potatoes right there. We got some food coloring just to give the agar a little bit of color. Then of course we got our main ingredient, the Telephone brand agar powder, that can be found at just about any ethnic store, Vietnamese store, Chinese store, anything like that. And then you're gonna want honey or corn syrup. Now when I make my liquid cultures, I like to use a little bit of both, but for the agar I actually just use corn syrup. So either one will work though. If you don't have corn syrup, honey will work. If you don't have honey, corn syrup will work. You're gonna want some aluminum foil, a digital scale, and a measuring cup for water. So as I said in the last video, a little bit, it's a 3-to-1 ratio. So 3 grams of the mashed potatoes, 2 grams of the agar powder, and then 1 gram of the corn syrup or honey, mixed into a half cup of water. But anyway, so we're going to start with the Hungry Jack mashed potatoes, and we're going to do our 3-2-1. So I'm actually going to double it, so I'm going to do 6 grams of the mashed potato flakes. Alright, if you're anything like me, I just like to make sure my scale is fairly accurate at least. This recipe is fairly forgiving, but a nickel weighs 5 grams, so you can just throw a nickel on there. 5 grams on the dot, we know we're good. We'll turn it off, and then we'll throw our little cup on here that we're going to measure all our ingredients into, and we're going to get everything ready to go. So we're going to start off with our Hungry Jack mashed potatoes, the 3-to-1 ratio, so we're going to double it. That should give me about 10 to 12 cups to be able to pour, maybe a little more. So here we go. We're going to turn our scale on, and we just have a little spoon. That's what we're using to dish out our ingredients. So we're going to double it. We're going to go 6 grams of the mashed potatoes. 1 tablespoon right there was just about 4.5. Oop. Just a little bit over. This recipe is pretty forgiving, but I'm going to try to be as accurate as possible for you. There we go, 6 grams. And then you're going to tare your scale so that your scale doesn't turn off, because if you go too long it will turn off. And we're going to add 4 grams of our agar powder. Four grams of agar, tare it again. 2 grams of corn syrup. I like to try to make like a little hole in the center for it to ball up in. And 2 grams corn syrup. We're a little bit over, but that is okay. We're actually almost a whole gram over, but it's okay. It's pretty forgiving. just more food for the mycelium to eat. And we were all good there. And we're gonna take a pot and a cup, and we're gonna put 1 cup of water into the cup, into the pot. Take it to the oven and put it on high. Alright, now I got you by the stove. So I like to use pots that have these little pouring things. It's going to make it a lot easier to get it into the bottle later. If not, make sure you have a funnel as well. And we're just going to pour that right into the water. And mix it very well. The better you mix it, the more clear and even your agar will look. So I pretty much like to mix it until it boils. So the mashed potato flakes is going to give it a starch, the corn syrup is going to give it sugars, and the agar is going to make it like a gel for it to all combine. And that's going to give plenty of food for your spores to germinate on, or your liquid culture to germinate on, until you can transfer it to your grains or your bulk bag or whatever you have going. And that is the idea with this. Pretty well mixed. I'm gonna bring the media bottle over here so we're ready. And while that's warming up, I'm also going to start filling the pressure cooker that is right next to me. Already starting to bubble, so I'll come back. Doesn't take very long to make a cup of water with a little bit of stuff in it to boil. So you really want to watch it, because as soon as it starts to boil pretty good, you want to pull it off and pour it into your media bottle. You don't want to overcook the agar. Now we're getting really close. As you can see. Right about there. Just getting it to a good boil. Mix it some more and pour that straight into your media bottle. Definitely want to be very careful when working so close to burners. Put that on the back burner. Next, more water. The pressure cooker. And I like to try to stay away from colors that are contamination colors. So just a couple drops of blue in here will do me good, I think. And we'll put this on here, holding it with a hot pad, and just mix that up a little. And that's just gonna make it look nice and pretty. And that is that. So you'll want this, toss this on there. You'll want this about a half turn back so that it doesn't build pressure and blow up when you're pressure cooking it. Put that in the pressure cooker. I like to add about 4 big cups to my pressure cooker on a 30-minute pressure cook. And we got a little bit of water in there coming up over the thing in the bottom just a little bit. That should be plenty to pressure cook for 30 minutes. Maybe I'll do 1 more cup just to be safe. You don't ever want to burn a pressure cooker dry, so a little bit more water is never a bad thing. And before I forget, we want our aluminum foil. I'm going to turn this on high so it can start warming up so that the agar doesn't start solidifying. And we're just going to cover that lid so that no water gets inside when it's pressure cooking. But still have your lid half turn back, quarter turn back at minimum, but you'll want it covered like that. Put it back in the pressure cooker, put the lid on. So now we have our lid on, and we're going to let it go for about 15 minutes till we know it's at a good boil in there. Once steam starts coming out of that little chute there, then we'll put the weight on it, let it get to 15 psi. After that, we'll start our 30-minute timer. You do want your pressure cooker pretty well centered on your coils as well, so that the heat evenly distributes. So I will kind of check it and make sure it's centered, make whatever adjustments I need to, and go from there. And now we wait. Alright, 3 minutes. We're starting to see a little bit of steam come off. Guess I should have had it right about there. I can see the steam in here though. So we're going to call that good and throw our pressure weight on there. Simple as that. We'll let that build up to 15 psi. Now I know mine doesn't get all the way there, so I'll put a rag on it just to get it up to 15 psi. I think I might need to replace the seal in my pressure cooker. But yeah, if you, depending on the pressure cooker you have, just make sure it is one that's capable of 15 psi or that you have a 15 psi weight. Whenever the weight starts dancing a little bit, then you know you're pretty much there, and you can kind of turn down the heat a little bit so it maintains and doesn't build too high. And then once it gets to that 15 psi, you'll let it cook for 30 minutes. Putting a rag on here like that, there will be steam. It can be very hot. Be very careful, do it at your own risk. I'm not to be held liable. We are almost to 15 psi. So about 10 minutes before the 30-minute timer is up, I will start the oven to 250 degrees so that when I pour my cups, it's already preheated. And we've reached our 15 psi, so I'll turn it down a little bit. Start my timer. So this is one part, if we were doing grains or something, normally I would tell you just let it cool, let the pressure go down, wait till the next day because the jars would be way too hot to touch or something. But this is kind of a time sensitive issue that we got going on here. If we wait too long, then the agar will start to turn into a gel. But if we go too soon, then we'll melt our cups. So there's gotta be a certain gray area in there. But now that we're all done with this, it's just about ready. The lock just released, so it's saying it's good, but I'm gonna give it a few more minutes to cool off. We'll pull it out, and then we'll let it cool off for another 5 minutes or so and go from there. Alright, so we've given it a few minutes to cool off. I don't feel any more bubbling in there when I touch it. pretty confident we're safe to open this now. So we'll just open it, remove the top, and pull your drawer out. Careful with the steam, it's hot. I'm pretty used to it. Set it on the counter, give it a little mix. And then from there, we will start prepping to pour them. So we'll just crack this open. The idea is 250 degrees is hot enough to where it should push any contaminants away that are in the air. So we'll have this open, and we'll have our tray just over it. Coffee mug for some weight or something. And we'll let that chill for a few minutes, kind of sanitize the area. And we gotta definitely let this cool for a while. I've already given it a few minutes, but obviously the glass is gonna be way hotter than the foil. Maybe give her close. Actually leave her. This one she's not sucking any contaminants. And give her a good mix. All that stuff. Plenty of time to settle on the bottom. Now you can get a temperature reader that will tell you the temperature of the agar solution, but I don't have one. So what I do is I let it cool for about 5-10 minutes. Do this at your own discretion. I am not held liable for any injury that you may incur. Just try to use common sense to the best of your ability. This has only been out of that pressure cooker for about 5 minutes now, so I'm gonna give it another 5 minutes. I'm gonna give it a touch test, is what I like to call it. And you know, if I can touch it and it's too hot and I have to pull away right away, then it's too hot to pour. If I can touch it and I can hold it for about 10 seconds, then I know it's good enough to pour, but it's not too cool it's going to start gelling, but it's not too hot that it's going to melt our cups. So in the meantime, I'm going to put a mask on so that I'm not breathing all kinds of contaminants all over everything while I'm doing this. I'm going to hand sanitize my hands. I'm going to spray the condiment cup wrapper with rubbing alcohol, because last time I did this over this, I wrapped it up so everything in there should still be pretty clean. So I'm going to spray the outside of that before I open it to hopefully try to reduce any contamination. And I'm going to set the cups over this for a couple minutes and then we'll pour. So we're going to get that process started now. We're almost to a good pouring temperature. Yes, I'll even spray this down with alcohol just to make sure. No contaminants. Should never be too clean when it comes to mushrooms. I don't have an open flame down there, so I'm not worried about alcohol. For the pour. I probably just put contaminants all over that by putting it against my shirt. A good way to tell if you've poured a little too soon is sometimes the cups will get a little soft and harder to close. I just set it to the side with the cap on if that happens. Until it cools down enough. That's just no good. Shoot. Always make sure you have enough lids. I don't know how I lost them. But there we go. And there we have it, YouTube. DIY Agar. Everything can be found at your grocery store. I hope you enjoyed the video. After this cools and gelatizes and everything, tomorrow we'll come on and we'll inoculate it with some spores. And then I'll do some other ones afterwards with some liquid cultures and things that I have. But I hope you guys are enjoying the journey, and I hope you follow along and are as successful at cultivating mushrooms as you can be. Once again, this is Wesley with Mountains, Mushrooms, and Mary Jane on the DIY Mushroom Enthusiasts vlog segment. Have a great day.